Black waitress had just $5 for a blind date. Billionaire CEO, watching nearby, couldn't stay silent. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. A moment that would change everything for one waitress, one billionaire CEO, and the world they lived in. Imagine sitting at a fancy restaurant in the heart of San Francisco, where luxury is the norm and everything around you screams wealth and power. The marble floors glisten under the soft, golden glow of chandeliers, the air filled with the hum of high-class conversations and the clinking of expensive glassware. At a table, near the back of the room, sits a young black woman, Cassandra. She's dressed in the standard black uniform that signifies her place in the grand scheme of things, a waitress in a high-end restaurant. But there's something different about Cassandra. While others around her are consumed with their lavish dinners, she holds herself with a quiet confidence, an inner strength that is hard to ignore. Cassandra is a single mother. She's been working double shifts to make ends meet, trying to support her daughter, Amara, who is sitting quietly in a booth nearby, waiting for her mother to finish her shift. But tonight, things are different. Tonight, Cassandra is on a blind date with someone she met online. She's nervous, excited, and determined to make the most of it, even though she only has $5 to her name. As she walks over to meet her date, the rich, powerful guests around her continue their conversations, oblivious to her presence. But then, as if fate had a different plan, a billionaire CEO is sitting nearby. Richard Kessler looks at her, his gaze filled with a mix of amusement and disbelief. He watches her walk past, his smirk growing wider. He knows she doesn't belong in this space. She doesn't fit the mold of the people who normally dine here. And with that, he decides to make a joke. $5 for a blind date. Not even enough to buy a drink at this place, he says loud enough for the table to hear, his voice dripping with condescension. The room goes silent for a moment, the tension thick. Cassandra pauses, feeling the sting of his words. She had heard these kinds of remarks before, but something about tonight, about this moment, makes her decide she's not going to let it slide. She's not going to be the quiet, invisible woman that people like Richard expect her to be. She turns around, looks him directly in the eyes, and with a calm yet firm voice, she responds, "I may only have $5, but it's worth more than your disrespect." For a split second, Richard is stunned. The guests at the table laugh awkwardly, unsure of how to react. But Cassandra doesn't care. She's already walked away, her head held high, her heart racing with the knowledge that she just stood up for herself. Richard, still stunned, watches her go. He's used to being the one in control, the one who makes others feel small. But Cassandra has flipped the script. In that brief exchange, the power dynamic shifted. She's no longer the invisible woman in the background. She's now the one in control of the room's attention. Richard doesn't know it yet, but this moment, this small act of defiance, is going to change the course of the evening for both of them. Stay tuned to see what happens next, because sometimes, the people we least expect are the ones who end up teaching us the most valuable lessons. The tension in the room hung heavy as Cassandra continued to walk away from Richard, her heart pounding with the weight of her words. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Richard sat back in his chair, blinking in disbelief, as the silence from the table felt like a spotlight shining directly on him. He wasn't used to people challenging him, especially not in a public setting like this. Most people, especially those in Cassandra's position, would have cowered under the weight of his disdain. But not her. Not tonight. Cassandra's pulse raced as she made her way back to her table, where her daughter, Amara, was still quietly sitting, lost in a book. Amara glanced up, her eyes brightening when she saw her mother returning. Cassandra gave her a small, reassuring smile. Before sitting down, the moment was still raw, the sting of Richard's words echoing in her mind. But she was determined not to let it ruin her night. It had been a long time since she'd felt the need to stand up for herself like that. Amara, sensing her mother's emotions, placed the book down and asked softly, "Are you okay, Mom?" Cassandra nodded, though her voice was calm. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a little bump in the road. But let's focus on tonight. This is our time. Amara smiled, her young face glowing with a warmth that filled Cassandra's heart. But just as she was about to turn her attention back to her daughter, she felt a presence looming over her shoulder. It was Richard. He was standing next to their table now, his towering figure casting a shadow over them. Cassandra's eyes narrowed slightly. She didn't know what he was up to, but she wasn't going to let him make her feel small again. "I owe you an apology," Richard said, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. It wasn't the kind of apology she expected. She hadn't imagined he would come over to apologize at all, let alone in front of a room full of people. But here he was. "I shouldn't have said what I said," he continued, his tone softer than she had anticipated. "It was rude, and I can see now that I was wrong." Cassandra didn't say anything at first. She just looked at him, her expression unreadable. Richard cleared his throat, seemingly uncomfortable in the quiet atmosphere. "I've been in this game a long time," he said, glancing around the room. "I've seen people like you before, and I've been wrong about a lot of things in the past. But I'm starting to see that there's more to people than just their circumstances." He paused for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "I've had a lot of success in my life, but success doesn't mean anything when you don't know how to treat people." Cassandra studied him closely. She wasn't sure what to make of this sudden change in demeanor. Richard Kessler, the billionaire CEO who had once made her feel insignificant, was now standing before her, apologizing for his behavior. She had to admit, she wasn't expecting this. Amara, who had been quietly observing the interaction, finally spoke up. "Does this mean you're not going to make fun of my mom anymore?" she asked, her voice carrying a touch of curiosity. Richard turned to the young girl, a hint of surprise crossing his features. "No," he said, his smile faltering. "I won't. I promise." Cassandra couldn't help but feel a sense of pride swell inside her as she looked at her daughter. Amara had always been her strength, but seeing her stand up for what was right, even in the face of adversity, reminded her that they were stronger together than they were apart. Richard took a step back, his apology hanging in the air. The energy in the room shifted, the tension lifting as the other guests, who had been watching the exchange, began to return to their meals. Cassandra turned her attention back to her daughter, her smile now more genuine. "Let's enjoy the rest of our night, okay?" she said softly. Amara nodded eagerly, and they both began to settle into the comfort of each other's company. But as the evening wore on, Cassandra couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Not just in Richard, but in herself. For the first time in a long while, she realized that she didn't need anyone's approval to be worthy. She had always been worthy, and tonight, she had proved that to herself. Just as she was about to take a sip of her drink, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me, Mississippi." Cassandra looked up to see a waiter standing beside her. He had a small envelope in his hand, which he extended to her. "This is for you," he said, his tone polite but curious. Cassandra opened the envelope, her eyes widening slightly as she pulled out a check. It was made out for a generous amount, far more than she had ever expected to earn in a night. She glanced up, her gaze landing on Richard, who was seated at a nearby table, watching her. He gave a small nod, acknowledging her confused expression. It was a gesture of kindness, an unspoken understanding between them. Cassandra's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just an apology. It was a recognition of her worth, of the value she brought to the world. And in that moment, she realized that the night had turned into something far more than just a dinner. It had become a reminder that no matter how little you have, your worth is never defined by the money in your pocket or the judgment of others. As the evening continued, the atmosphere in the restaurant slowly began to shift. The tension that had once filled the air now seemed to dissipate, replaced by a sense of calm that was both surprising and welcomed. Cassandra sat back in her chair, her eyes meeting Richard's across the room. The exchange earlier had been unexpected, but it had also been a turning point, not just for him, but for her as well. She had always believed that actions spoke louder than words, and tonight, she had proven that to herself. Amara, still sitting beside her mother, was quietly observing everything around her. For a moment, Cassandra felt a quiet sense of pride. Her daughter had seen her stand up for herself and had witnessed firsthand the strength it took to challenge someone like Richard. But as the night went on, Cassandra couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed within Richard. The billionaire CEO, who had once dismissed her with a glance and a few mocking words, was no longer the man he had been at the beginning of the evening. He had apologized, acknowledged his wrongs, and even offered her a generous sum of money. But it wasn't just the money that had caught her attention. It was the sincerity behind his actions. Richard had recognized her worth, not as a waitress, but as a person. He had seen her for who she truly was. As the night drew to a close, Richard stood up from his table and walked over to Cassandra's side. This time, there was no arrogance in his step, no smug smile on his face. Instead, he approached with a quiet humility that caught Cassandra off guard. "I want to thank you," he said, his voice sincere. "Not just for your patience tonight, but for showing me something I've been blind to for a long time." Cassandra raised an eyebrow, unsure of what he meant. Richard continued, "You reminded me that power isn't about money or status. It's about understanding people, treating them with respect, and recognizing their worth. I've spent so much time focused on myself, I forgot what it truly means to connect with others." Cassandra was taken aback. This wasn't the Richard she had encountered earlier in the evening. The man who had mocked her, who had looked down on her, was now standing before her with a sense of humility she hadn't expected. "I've been wrong," he said again, "and I want to make it right. If there's anything I can do for you, anything at all, I'll do it." Cassandra hesitated. She had never been one to ask for help, let alone from someone like Richard. But something about his tone, his words, made her reconsider. She knew that people like Richard didn't offer second chances lightly, and this could be an opportunity she couldn't ignore. "There's one thing," she said after a moment of thought. "I've always wanted to start my own business. Something that would give back to the community, something that would empower people who have been overlooked, just like I have. But I don't have the resources to make it happen." Richard smiled, his eyes lighting up. "I can help with that," he said, without hesitation. "I'll invest in your business. You'll have the resources you need to get started, and I'll make sure you have everything you need to succeed." Cassandra couldn't believe what she was hearing. This wasn't just an apology anymore. This was an opportunity to change her life, to build something of her own, and to make a difference in the world around her. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, feeling overwhelmed. Richard placed a hand on her shoulder, his gesture warm and genuine. "You don't need to say anything. Just know that I'm here to support you. No strings attached." As the night came to an end, Cassandra couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. The evening had started out as just another ordinary night at work, but it had turned into something extraordinary. Not only had she stood up for herself, but she had also been given an opportunity to fulfill a dream she had long kept hidden. As she and Amara left the restaurant, Cassandra glanced back at Richard, who was still watching her with a look of quiet admiration. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she knew she was ready for it. She had learned that her worth was not defined by the money in her pocket or the judgment of others. Her worth was something far greater: her strength, her resilience, and her ability to stand tall in the face of adversity. And as she walked out into the cool San Francisco night with her daughter by her side, she knew that nothing could hold her back. The future was hers to create. The following weeks flew by, and Cassandra found herself adjusting to the whirlwind of changes in her life. What started as a simple apology from Richard Kessler had quickly snowballed into something much larger. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from investors, partners, and advisors, all reaching out to support her business venture. The doors that had once seemed so firmly closed were now wide open. Cassandra had always dreamed of starting a business, something that could make a real difference in the lives of those who, like her, had been overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated. But she never imagined that it would happen like this. The initial shock had faded, but the feeling of disbelief remained. Richard's offer to invest in her vision was something she could hardly wrap her head around. He wasn't just giving her money. He was offering her a partnership, a chance to build something that was truly her own. As she sat in her small apartment one evening, sipping a cup of tea and looking at her vision board, she realized how far she had come. This was it. This was the moment when everything could change. She wasn't just going to survive. She was going to thrive. But with the excitement also came the pressure. Starting a business wasn't easy, especially when you had so much to prove. Cassandra's mind raced with ideas, plans, and strategies, but she had to remind herself to take it one step at a time. She had her daughter, Amara, to think about. The last thing she wanted was to sacrifice the time they had together in pursuit of her dreams. As Amara sat next to her on the couch, flipping through a book, Cassandra knew she had to balance her new responsibilities with her role as a mother. Amara had been her rock throughout all of this. The little girl, who had witnessed the moment Cassandra stood up to Richard, was now watching her mother take the next big step. She had always known her mother was strong, but this new version of Cassandra, the one with a clear vision and determination, was something else. "Mom," Amara said, looking up from her book, "are we really going to do it? Start the business?" Cassandra smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Yes, baby, we are. But it's not going to be easy. There will be a lot of hard work, but I promise you, it will be worth it." Amara nodded, her eyes shining with excitement. "I know you can do it, Mom. You've always known how to make things happen." Those words, so simple and pure, filled Cassandra with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. She wasn't just doing this for herself. She was doing it for Amara, for their future, and for everyone who had ever been told they weren't good enough. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, research, and planning. Cassandra worked tirelessly, putting together a business plan and meeting with potential partners. Richard, true to his word, was there every step of the way, offering guidance and support when needed. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments when Cassandra doubted herself, but she pushed through, remembering why she started. One evening, after another long day of meetings, Cassandra sat at her desk, staring at her laptop. The business was starting to take shape, but there was still so much to do. As she rubbed her eyes, she heard a knock at the door. She wasn't expecting anyone, but when she opened it, she found Richard standing there, holding a large envelope. "I thought you could use this," he said with a smile, handing it to her. Cassandra opened the envelope, and inside, she found a check for a significant amount of money, along with a note that read, "To help get things started." Her hands shook slightly as she looked at the check. It was more than enough to cover the initial expenses of her business, and more importantly, it was a symbol of trust. Richard wasn't just offering her financial support. He was giving her the confidence to take the next step. "You've got this, Cassandra," he said, his voice firm but kind. "I believe in you." Cassandra felt a lump form in her throat. She hadn't expected this level of support, not from someone like Richard. But it wasn't just the money. It was the belief that he had in her vision, in her ability to succeed. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "This means more than you'll ever know." Richard nodded, then turned to leave. "You've earned it," he said over his shoulder. "Now go make it happen." Cassandra closed the door behind him and stood there for a moment, holding the check in her hands. The weight of it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like a promise. A promise that no matter what obstacles lay ahead, she was capable of overcoming them. As she looked out the window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, Cassandra realized that she wasn't just chasing a dream anymore. She was living it. And with that, she took a deep breath, ready for the next chapter in her life. The next few months passed in a blur of work, decisions, and small victories. Cassandra was building her business step by step, brick by brick. Each day, she poured her heart and soul into making her vision a reality. The restaurant she had always dreamed of opening was now in the works, and the community she envisioned supporting was starting to take shape. But as with any dream worth pursuing, there were challenges. Cassandra had spent countless hours working on her business plan, meeting with suppliers, securing permits, and dealing with all the legalities that came with opening a new establishment. There were days when she felt completely overwhelmed, like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure if she would soar or fall. Yet, every time doubt crept in, she remembered Richard's words, "You've got this. I believe in you." That belief kept her going, even on the toughest days. She was building this not just for herself, but for Amara, for the community that needed a space where they could thrive, and for everyone who had ever been told they weren't enough. One afternoon, as Cassandra was finalizing the last few details for the restaurant's grand opening, she received an unexpected call. It was from Richard. "Cassandra, how's everything going?" he asked, his voice warm and familiar. "It's going well," she replied, smiling as she glanced around the space that was beginning to come together. "The restaurant is almost ready. We've got the staff in place, the menu is set, and we're just a few weeks away from opening." Richard's voice brightened. "That's fantastic. I've been thinking a lot about your mission. You're not just creating a restaurant, you're creating a movement, and I want to help you take it to the next level. Cassandra's heart skipped a beat. She had always known Richard was committed to supporting her, but hearing him say this felt like a moment of validation. What do you mean? She asked, her curiosity piqued. I want to partner with you, Richard said. I've got the resources to help you scale this up. We can take this beyond just one location. I believe in what you're doing, Cassandra. You're making a real difference. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, Cassandra was speechless. The opportunity to expand, to take her vision even further, was right in front of her. It was everything she had hoped for, yet the weight of the decision was not lost on her. I don't know what to say, she finally managed. This is a huge offer, Richard. I'm grateful, but I need to think it over. This is my dream, and I want to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. Richard was understanding. Of course, take your time. But remember, this is your vision, your story. I'm just here to help you make it bigger. Cassandra hung up the phone and sat down at the table, her mind racing. This was the moment she had dreamed about, but it was also the moment that would define the future of her business. The idea of expanding so quickly was overwhelming, and yet the thought of helping more people, giving more individuals the opportunity to thrive, filled her with excitement. After much reflection, Cassandra knew what she had to do. She couldn't let fear hold her back. She had already proven that she was capable of standing up for herself and her dream. Now, it was time to take it to the next level. She called Richard back a few hours later. I'm in, she said, her voice firm and confident. Let's do it. Let's take this beyond just one restaurant. Let's create something that can really make a difference. Richard's enthusiasm was palpable. You won't regret it, he said. We're going to change the game, Cassandra. And so, Cassandra's dream began to take flight in ways she hadn't imagined. With Richard's help, they started planning for multiple locations, expanding the restaurant concept to different cities and communities. They worked together to ensure the vision remained intact, that the mission to support and empower those who had been overlooked would always be at the heart of the business. As Cassandra sat in her office late one night, reviewing plans for the next restaurant, she couldn't help but smile. She had come so far from that night in San Francisco when she had been humiliated by Richard's words. She had stood up for herself then, and now, she was standing at the helm of a business that would change lives. She glanced over at Amara, who was now growing into a young woman, full of promise and dreams of her own. Amara had always been her motivation, but now, as they sat together, Cassandra realized that she was also creating a legacy for her daughter. This wasn't just about a restaurant. It was about building something that would last, something that would make an impact on the world long after Cassandra was gone. It was about showing Amara that no matter where you came from, no matter what obstacles you faced, you could create your own path. And with that, Cassandra knew she was exactly where she was meant to be, ready to take on whatever came next. The days following Cassandra's decision to expand her business were a whirlwind of planning, meetings, and anticipation. With Richard's support, she had the resources to turn her dream into a reality on a much larger scale. But with the excitement of the expansion came a new set of challenges. Cassandra was now responsible for managing multiple locations, finding the right staff, and ensuring that her core mission of empowerment and community was maintained. It wasn't just about opening restaurants anymore. It was about creating a brand that stood for something bigger than just food and service. It was about changing lives. The first new location was set to open in a nearby city, and Cassandra was determined to make it a success. She had spent weeks working on the interior design, choosing a location that was not just in a prime area, but also accessible to the people who needed it most. The menu, too, was carefully curated to reflect the values she wanted to instill in the business: fresh, locally sourced ingredients, affordable prices, and a welcoming atmosphere for everyone. But there was one challenge Cassandra hadn't anticipated. As her business grew, so did the pressure. The responsibility of ensuring that everything ran smoothly, that the staff was well-trained and motivated, and that each location maintained the same level of excellence weighed heavily on her. She found herself working longer hours, constantly on the phone with her team, resolving issues before they even reached the surface. At times, it felt like she was running on fumes, and the balance between her work and her personal life began to shift. Amara, now a teenager, noticed the change in her mother. The late nights, the stress, the exhaustion. She had always admired her mother's drive, but lately, Cassandra had become distant, too focused on the business to spend time with her daughter. One evening, after a particularly long day, Cassandra returned home to find Amara sitting on the couch, her arms crossed, waiting for her. "Mom, can we talk?" Amara asked, her voice calm but firm. Cassandra sighed and sat down beside her daughter. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Amara hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I know you've been really busy lately, but I miss you. I miss us. I miss the way things used to be." Cassandra's heart sank. She hadn't realized how much her focus on the business had affected Amara. She had been so caught up in making everything perfect that she hadn't seen the toll it was taking on her family. "I'm sorry, Amara," Cassandra said, her voice soft. "I didn't mean for you to feel that way. I've just been so focused on making sure everything works, but I haven't been there for you like I should have." Amara looked at her mother, her eyes full of understanding. "I know you're doing this for us, for me, but you don't have to do it all alone. You don't have to be perfect all the time." Cassandra smiled faintly, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. Amara was wise beyond her years, and in that moment, she reminded Cassandra of something important. The success of her business was only meaningful if it didn't come at the cost of the things that truly mattered. "I promise, Amara, I'm going to do better," Cassandra said, taking her daughter's hand. "We'll make time for each other. I don't want you to ever feel like I'm too busy for you. You're my world." Over the next few weeks, Cassandra made a conscious effort to slow down, to find more balance in her life. She delegated more tasks to her team, trusting them to handle the day-to-day operations. She started spending more quality time with Amara, even if it was just sharing a quiet evening together at home, watching a movie, or cooking dinner. Cassandra realized that while building a business was important, building a life with her daughter was even more so. One night, as they sat together at the dinner table, Amara looked at her mother and smiled. "I'm proud of you, Mom. You're doing amazing things. But I'm even prouder of the fact that you're still here with me. We're in this together." Cassandra's heart swelled with emotion. She had spent so much time chasing success that she had almost lost sight of what truly mattered. But now, she knew that the journey she was on was not just about building a business. It was about building a legacy, one that her daughter would be proud of, one that would stand for something greater than herself. As Cassandra looked at Amara, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just working to create a better future for them. She was working to show her daughter that success, true success, was about balance, love, and family. And in that moment, Cassandra realized that she was already living the life she had always dreamed of, not just as a businesswoman, but as a mother, a role model, and a woman who had the power to make a difference. The future was bright, and she was ready to embrace it, side by side with the one person who had always been there for her, Amara. As Cassandra sat in the newly opened restaurant, looking out over the bustling dining room, she couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. The space was full of energy, customers chatting, waitstaff hustling, and the sound of sizzling dishes being served. It was everything she had dreamed of and more. The night was off to a great start, with the first wave of customers enjoying their meals, and Cassandra was finally able to take a breath and look around at what she had built. It wasn't just the physical space that gave her a sense of pride, it was the mission behind it. Her restaurant wasn't just about food, it was about creating a community, about giving people who had been overlooked a chance to thrive. The idea of supporting those who had always been pushed aside, whether it was because of their background, their looks, or their social status, had always been at the heart of her vision. As she walked through the restaurant, her eyes landed on a group of employees in the back, preparing food and handling orders. She had carefully handpicked each member of the team, making sure they not only had the skills, but shared her values. They were more than just staff. They were part of the larger vision, part of something bigger than themselves. The idea of giving back to the community had always been her driving force. In the past, she had been that person, the one working late shifts just to get by, the one who was looked down upon by others simply because of her job. And now, here she was, the owner of a successful business, with the ability to make a real difference. She looked at Amara, who was sitting at the bar with a friend, her face lit up with a smile. Cassandra's heart swelled with pride as she saw her daughter finally enjoying the fruits of her hard work. Amara had been with her every step of the way, offering support, encouragement, and understanding when Cassandra needed it most. Cassandra walked over to her daughter, who waved her over excitedly. "Mom, this place is amazing. I can't believe it's really happening," Amara said, her eyes shining. "I'm so proud of you." Cassandra smiled, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I'm proud of you too, Amara. You've been my rock through all of this." Amara grinned and hugged her mother. "I knew you could do it. You always make things happen." Just then, the door swung open, and Richard Kessler walked in, looking around the restaurant with an impressed smile. He had kept in touch with Cassandra since their initial partnership, offering advice and support whenever needed. Cassandra had grown to trust him not just as a business partner, but as a mentor and friend. Richard spotted her and made his way over to her. "This place is incredible," he said, glancing around. "I knew you had it in you, Cassandra. You've created something special here." Cassandra felt a mix of pride and gratitude. "It's not just me," she said. "It's all of us. My team, my vision, and the community. We're all in this together." Richard nodded, his expression sincere. "You're right. And that's why it works. You've built something that's not just about profit. It's about making a real impact. You've created a space where people feel seen, heard, and valued. That's what makes this place stand out." Cassandra smiled, her heart full. "That's exactly what I wanted. To make a difference." Richard gave her a reassuring nod. "And you are. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm proud of you, Cassandra." The two of them stood there for a moment, taking in the energy of the restaurant, the sounds of laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the hum of conversation. It was everything Cassandra had worked for, and it was just the beginning. But as the night progressed, something unexpected happened. A well-dressed couple walked in, taking a seat at one of the tables near the window. They seemed out of place in the humble, community-focused restaurant, and the way they looked around with slight disdain made Cassandra uneasy. As they scanned the menu, they exchanged whispers, clearly unimpressed. Cassandra couldn't help but overhear a few snippets of their conversation. "This place doesn't look like anything special," the woman muttered, barely looking up from the menu. "I don't know why we're here." Cassandra felt a pang of frustration. She had worked so hard to create a space that was welcoming to everyone. But here they were, judging the very place that was trying to break down barriers. Before she could react, Richard, who had been chatting with a few other customers, noticed the couple's behavior. He caught Cassandra's eye and gave a subtle nod. Cassandra knew exactly what he was thinking. The power dynamics were about to shift again. Without a word, Richard walked over to the couple's table. Cassandra watched as he exchanged pleasantries, his presence commanding attention. He didn't just introduce himself as a billionaire CEO. He spoke with humility, as someone who genuinely cared. The couple, once dismissive, suddenly seemed to change their tune. Richard spoke to them for a few minutes, engaging them in conversation about the mission behind the restaurant, the importance of community, and the values Cassandra had instilled in every aspect of the business. By the time he left their table, the couple was smiling, nodding in approval, and even complimenting the food. Cassandra couldn't believe what she had witnessed. Richard had done more than just smooth over an uncomfortable situation. He had turned it into a learning moment. He had shown the couple that there was more to a place than what meets the eye, that real value comes from understanding and connection, not just surface impressions. As the night wound down, Cassandra felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had proven to herself, to her team, and to the world that she was capable of creating something that was meaningful. And in doing so, she had given others the chance to do the same. As Cassandra stood in the center of the restaurant the following week, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The business was growing beyond her expectations, with each new location becoming a beacon of the values she had fought so hard to build. The concept was working. People were connecting, employees were thriving, and the community was responding to the message she had put at the heart of it all: respect, empowerment, and opportunity for everyone. But as the business expanded, Cassandra felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her. She had been used to working hard, but now, with multiple locations to manage, the pressure was starting to feel overwhelming. Every day, there were new challenges, supply chain issues, staffing problems, and the constant balancing act of keeping the business running smoothly while staying true to her values. Despite the success, there were moments when Cassandra found herself questioning if she could continue to handle it all. One evening, After another long day of meetings, Cassandra sat in her office, staring at the piles of paperwork that needed her attention. The restaurant was busy, the staff was operating at full capacity, but she felt an emptiness that no amount of success could fill. It wasn't the business that was causing this feeling, it was the strain of always being on, of always having to make the right decisions for everyone around her. It was exhausting. As she stared out the window, she saw Amara walking toward the restaurant, carrying a small package. Cassandra smiled softly. She had been so focused on the business that she had missed seeing her daughter grow. Amara was no longer the little girl who had supported her through thick and thin. She was becoming a young woman, with her own ideas, her own dreams. Cassandra opened the door just as Amara walked in, holding the package in her hands. "Hey, Mom," Amara greeted with a smile. "I've got something for you." Cassandra raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" Amara handed her the package, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Just open it." Cassandra carefully unwrapped the package, revealing a small framed photo. It was a picture of Amara and Cassandra, taken at the restaurant's grand opening, a moment when Cassandra had felt more hopeful than ever before. "I thought it would be nice to have this in your office," Amara said, her voice full of warmth. "You've worked so hard, and I know it's not always easy, but you've made something amazing happen. You should be proud." Cassandra felt a lump form in her throat. In all the busyness of running the restaurant, she had forgotten to celebrate the small moments, the ones that truly mattered. The picture was a reminder that success wasn't just about profit and expansion. It was about the people she had touched along the way, the lives she had changed, and the love that had been at the heart of everything she had done. "Thank you, Amara," Cassandra whispered, her voice full of emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Amara smiled and hugged her tightly. "You've got this, Mom. You've always had it. You just needed to see it for yourself." Cassandra held her daughter for a moment longer, realizing how much she had learned from her. It wasn't just about building a business. It was about building relationships, creating connections, and never losing sight of what truly mattered. As Cassandra returned the photo to her desk, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She didn't have to do everything on her own. She had a team, a community, and a daughter who believed in her, even when she doubted herself. The next day, as Cassandra walked through the restaurant floor, she took a moment to observe her staff. They were working hard, but there was something different in the air today. There was a sense of unity, of shared vision. She realized that the pressure she had been feeling wasn't just her burden to bear. She had a team behind her, and together, they could handle anything that came their way. With this newfound clarity, Cassandra made the decision to step back, to allow her team to take more of the reins and to focus on what truly mattered, making a positive impact in the community. She had built something that would last, something that would stand as a testament to the values she held dear. And while the challenges would always be there, she knew that she no longer had to face them alone. As she watched the restaurant fill with guests that evening, Cassandra smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of something even greater. She wasn't just creating a business. She was creating a legacy of love, empowerment, and community that would continue to grow for generations to come. As Cassandra sat in her office, looking out at the growing network of restaurants she had built from the ground up, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. There had been so many times when she doubted herself, when the weight of her responsibilities seemed too much to bear. But now, standing at the helm of something that was not just a business, but a movement, she realized that all those struggles had led to something extraordinary. She had always wanted to create a space where people who had been overlooked could find a place to thrive, a space where diversity was celebrated, and everyone had the chance to feel seen and heard. She had done that. The restaurants were not just places to eat. They were symbols of empowerment, community, and love. Cassandra's phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Richard. "The new locations are thriving. The team is doing an amazing job. Your vision is working." She smiled, grateful for his continued support. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was about creating something that had a lasting impact. Over the past year, the business had grown beyond what she had ever imagined. Cassandra had opened several new locations, and each one was as successful as the first. She had become a symbol of resilience, proof that no matter where you started in life, you could create something incredible with hard work and determination. But success had come with its challenges. There were long hours, tough decisions, and moments when Cassandra felt overwhelmed. But she had learned to lean on her team and her family, knowing that she didn't have to do it all on her own. Amara, now a young adult, was still by her side, offering her wisdom and encouragement when Cassandra needed it most. Their bond had grown stronger, and Amara had even started helping out with some of the restaurant operations, bringing her own ideas to the table. Cassandra couldn't be prouder of the woman her daughter was becoming. One evening, as Cassandra walked through the latest restaurant opening, she felt a sense of peace. The energy was vibrant, the staff was working smoothly, and the customers were enjoying their meals. It was everything she had envisioned. As she walked past a table, she overheard a conversation between two guests. "This place is different," one of them said. "It's not just about the food. It's the atmosphere, the people. You can feel the love in the air." Cassandra paused for a moment, feeling a lump form in her throat. She had created exactly what she had set out to build, a space where people felt valued, where they could be themselves without fear of judgment. It wasn't just about success or money anymore. It was about making a difference, one person at a time. That night, as Cassandra sat down to dinner with Amara, they talked about the future. Amara had big dreams of her own, and Cassandra knew that no matter where life took her, her daughter would continue to follow her passions. "I'm so proud of everything you've done, Mom," Amara said, her voice full of admiration. "You've built something incredible, and I know you're not done yet." Cassandra smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in a long time. "Neither are you," she replied. "You're going to do amazing things, Amara. We're just getting started." As they enjoyed their meal together, Cassandra realized that the most important thing she had built wasn't just the business. It was the relationships, the community, and the legacy she was leaving for her daughter and for everyone who believed in her vision. There was still more to do, more lives to touch, more dreams to chase. But for the first time in a long while, Cassandra felt content. She had created something that mattered, and that was worth more than all the success in the world. As they left the restaurant that night, Cassandra looked around at the bustling space filled with people laughing, talking, and enjoying each other's company. She knew she had built more than just a restaurant. She had built a place where people could find belonging, where everyone was seen and valued for who they truly were. And that was something that would last long after she was gone. Cassandra's journey had only just begun, but one thing was certain. Her legacy would live on, not just in the restaurants she had built, but in the lives she had touched and the community she had created. The future was bright, and Cassandra was ready to embrace whatever came next. In this inspiring Black story, a determined woman rises from the challenges of working as a waitress to building a successful restaurant empire that empowers others and creates a community of belonging. Through resilience and vision, she faces the harsh realities of business, balancing personal struggles and family responsibilities. Her journey reflects the power of persistence and the importance of supporting those who are often overlooked. This Black story highlights not only her success, but the meaningful connections she creates along the way. As she grows her business, she remains grounded in the values that set her apart: kindness, respect, and the unwavering belief in the potential of others. As each chapter of this Black story unfolds, the impact of her journey becomes undeniable. She is not just building a business, but a legacy that will inspire future generations. By embracing challenges, she shows that with determination, anyone can overcome obstacles and make a lasting impact on the world. This Black story is a powerful reminder that success is not measured by wealth alone, but by the lives touched and the communities built along the way. Join us as we follow the extraordinary journey of a woman who proves that Black stories are worth sharing, inspiring, and celebrating.